and a mature wolf can eat 30 pounds of meat at one sitting. Uh, I've been upon where wolves, we back trailed them because I saw the blood where it come across the road, and so we kind of back trailed them and saw where it all commenced, and then at the kill site we saw what was left, and this had all just happened and all that. Of course, I was living up in Yak, Montana, at that time. I tell everybody about the Yak. Um, Everybody's real familiar with it because Tom Orr lives up there. Well, Tom lived a little bit higher up the road than I did. I lived at the 35-mile mark, and there was no wolves when I lived up there. And then they introduced them. But I tell everybody about Yak, Montana real quick. It's kind of off the subject, but Yak, Montana is just one of the few places I've ever lived that didn't have a zip code, and it'd take you all day to go to the mailbox. It just was wild country when I moved up there. But it had gotten so bad with the wolves by the time that I got driven out, basically, from up there. There was just no game animals left. I moved from the Yak down to the very tip top corner of Idaho, and over a 25-year span, we lost 40 inches of top end antler growth on the whitetails. 40 inches. Actually, about 45. When I moved down there, they still put the deer in the newspapers. You could go by there and get a picture taken and all that. And, um, you know, the deer that would win the contest would always score somewhere between 180 and the upper 90s. It'd be one. The deer that won the contest usually be about like 195. And the year before, the year that I left from up there, the deer that won the contest was 140 inches and all that. It's just amazing. Wolves are nothing but an eating machine that is perfected. I mean, that was the reason that they got wiped out in the first place, is because ranchers and all just couldn't handle it. I mean, you know, when it, I don't know how they determine whether they just hungry or all the time or not, but by the time I left from up there, in order to tree a mountain lion, um, you would basically pick up a track, and that's by sight, by driving and looking out the truck windows, and you would pick up a track, and it would go off into an area, and then if the track was a line that you wanted to turn loose on, um, you would actually send snowmobiles around that area to make sure that he ain't come out. And then um, a lot of the beginning part of the hunt they did with the dogs on a leash, because when the dogs would tree a line, uh, the wolves would come to the dogs and they'd kill all the dogs. I mean, there would be nothing left but the collars and the hardware by the time you got over there to them. I mean, it changed a lot of things, and they can they can literally clean a drainage out. I I was hunting up there one year, and um, I messed around and I saw this same buck several different days, and I mean I needed the meat. I mean we lived off wild game and everything, and it was one of those deer that was right. You you wouldn't have shot him if you didn't have to shoot him. That type of deer, and I had let him go twice at that particular season, and I got over there, and it was a cutover, and pretty big cutover, and it had a big hill out there on mound up there, and so I went over there and kind of sat on the ground for a couple of days and everything, and then I ended up dragging me up some logs and everything like that, and I built me a pretty good little old pit to sit up there in. It was just like sitting in a lazy boy. And the sun, when the sun was right, the sun would beat down on you, and it was just a nice place to hunt and all that. I always saw plenty of deer and everything. And this went on for about 2 or 3 years. The only way you could get to it, it was open to the public. It was Forest Service access, but you would have to know it. In other words, you would have to study it to know to go back in there and all that. And so I could drive my little old Subaru, the bush car, just about anywhere, and I'd drive it as far as I could drive it up in there, and uh, go on, turn around, get it pointed downhill and everything like that. And wasn't but about 100 yards out to that little hill that I sat on and all. So it was just a good place to hunt. And so this went on for a couple 3 years, and I'd go in there when it was right. I'd always see enough to keep me coming back and everything. And then I went in there one time, and well, before that, I was sitting out there on that thing, and I saw a sign, and I couldn't figure out what that sign was. And I looked at that sign, and I looked at that sign, and I looked at that sign, and I knew wasn't no lines right there and everything like that. And so I looked at it hunting over there 4 or 5 different times, and so one day, uh, it was in the morning. I got up and kind of there's no quiet walking up in all that mess, and so I kind of meandered over there to that sign, and it was way up in the tree, and it was nailed on the side of the tree way up there, and I could read it and all, and it said, you know, basically it said this was a wolf trapping zone, da 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 da. Long story short, the biggest thing struck me is how high that sign was. Well, it took probably another couple of years before I realized that when the man, I couldn't believe somebody done towed a ladder up in there to keep somebody from stealing his sign, because I collect signs. Now, I don't steal them, but they better not be laying on the ground, because I'm going to carry it. I collect them. I just like them. I don't know why. But anyway, I ain't going to pull one off a tree or nothing like that, but if one's laying on the ground, it's fair game. And so I got looking at it, And I was like, I can't believe this man done brought that ladder in there. And like I said, it took me 2 or 3 years. And one day I was thinking about it, and I said the man was standing on top of the snowpack. And that's exactly what it was, because the trapping season overrun the hunting season. You could trap wolves for a while. And so, anyway, long story short, let's just make it established that the wolf is a killing machine. And likewise, areas where wild boar, feral hogs, whatever you want to call them, have they don't just infiltrate, they take over a joint. That's the way the wolf is. Back to the cutover. I went in there a couple, 3 or 4 different times trying to get me a deer, and no deer were blowing, nothing. It just wasn't nothing going on. And so I really didn't have permission. I was right on the corner up there, and there was a line that went kind of cattywampus across the side. It followed a road, and the road was out there. And from that little corner triangle, all that was open. And then from that road down, that was all. I didn't have permission to be there. But it all looked the same. And it wasn't posted or nothing. But I just didn't have permission, so I never fooled around down in there very much and all. And that one particular day, I decided I'd just go walk down there and look around on that road and see. And I walked and I walked and walked all up and down the road and all that, and I saw one little deer track. And I did all this before I walked up there and looked at the sign. And so Gary Stevie up there at Three Heart Outfitters, me and him are close friends, and he's as good a cat man as he is walking the face of this earth. He knows what a cat's gonna do before he does it. And if you want a big one, you be sure to go with him. But anyway, Gary knowed the man that was trapping up there, and he had caught 27 wolves out of that drainage. That's what he caught. So there ain't no telling how many there was and all that kind of stuff. Once again, they have no natural predator, you know, just like the wild hog. And I kind of gotten way off subject with this deal. It's going to take another episode to get everything kind of tied together, but this all ties back into your drawings and everything. You need to have some type of fresh information and all, because you don't want basically waste the draw on a unit that's non-productive. Well, that's about all the time I got right this minute, but till next time, y'all take care, and I'll see you later.